Hello everyone, you're watching a special edition interview with AIT Director Raymond Green on TVBS. Welcome to the set, Director.
Oh, thanks for coming.
So we actually know that Director Green is a long-time diplomat, and he is actually an expert in this region, especially on geopolitical issues. So we are very happy to have the set with us today to talk about US-Taiwan relationship. So to begin the interview, the first question is that we want to talk about energy security. The Lai administration has recently appeared to have a shift in its nuclear energy policy. So I'm just wondering, what is your view on such a shift, and how could US actually support Taiwan's future nuclear energy policy?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think Taiwan, like many countries around the world, is concerned about energy security given the disruptions we've seen in the global supply chain. So we're very happy to work with Taiwan to meet their energy needs across all sources and all types of energy. So obviously the US and Taiwan have a long history in the energy cooperation, including liquefied natural gas, oil, other forms of energy. This is one of the topics that we often discuss during some of our bilateral engagements, like the Economic Prosperity Partnership Dialogue. But on nuclear field as well, the US has much to offer. As you know, right now the US nuclear industry is very dynamic, given the huge demand for AI-related energy supplies. So we have a very vibrant energy sector that's very eager to work with Taiwan, whether it's on conventional nuclear materials or conventional nuclear technologies, or new technologies such as SMR, small modular reactors. Also, we have over 40 years of cooperation between US regulatory and nuclear safety organizations and their Taiwan counterparts. And so as Taiwan looks at options in the nuclear field, the US stands ready to be a partner.
I think the Taiwanese are actually very concerned about nuclear safety, and we talk about energy in that sense.
Right.
So do you think that small modular reactors is going to be the future trend?
Small modular reactors are definitely a future trend, but so are more advanced conventional reactors. And safety is an issue that I think everybody is concerned about. I mean, I was in Japan on March 11th, 2011, and so I understand the concerns that exist in all societies about that. But there's been so many advances in terms of technology, in terms of regulatory oversight, that we see nuclear as a very safe, very environmentally friendly alternative. And so we stand by to support Taiwan as it seeks to address these issues.
I'm going to move on to regional security issues. You know that President Trump is set to visit Beijing between May 14th to May 15th. So, and many expect that Taiwan is going to be one of the topics that is going to be discussed. But if Chinese President Xi Jinping were to press the US to explicitly oppose Taiwanese independence, how do you think that President Trump would react, and how could that actually affect US policy towards Taiwan?
Right. I mean, obviously, I don't comment on hypothetical questions, but the Trump administration has been clear on many occasions that our Taiwan policy, our One China policy, has not changed. And this has been a policy that's been consistent across administrations since 1979. When you look at our One China policy, the White House recently pointed out the fact that our One China policy, which is based on the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 communiques, the 6 assurances, is actually structured in a way that we can seek stable US-China relations without sacrificing a strong US-Taiwan relations. And so if you look at the US-Taiwan partnership, it's going from strength to strength. And even just in the last couple of months, you saw we had the Agreement on Reciprocal Trade, which is an enormous historic breakthrough in our economic relationship. We hosted the Economic Prosperity Partnership Dialogue, where we talked about, for example, the Pax Silica initiative and how the US and Taiwan can cooperate in shaping the AI revolution. We had a high-level education dialogue where not only we talked about language learning like we have in the past, but we expanded to include areas like workforce training to support our high-tech industry. So you see the US and Taiwan relationship going deeper and deeper. At the same time, we don't see that as a trade-off with a stable US-China relationship. And in fact, we think these two tracks are mutually reinforcing.
So there are reports that additional US arms sales could be expected in the pipeline. So do we expect any good news later this year?
Well, you know, we have the Taiwan Relations Act that commits the United States to provide Taiwan the articles and services it needs to fulfill its self-defense capabilities commensurate with the threat that it faces. And so the U.S. will continue to abide by that policy line. We'll continue to support Taiwan's self-defense needs.
But earlier this year, there were actually some concerns raised after President Trump, when he was asked about his phone call with Chinese President Xi Jinping and also additional arms sales to Taiwan, where President Trump said that he will be discussing the issue with Xi. So that led to some concerns in Taiwan, wondering, you know, like what does it mean, or does it signal a change to the 6 assurances.
Right. I mean, after that, the episode you discussed, the White House was very clear in reiterating that our Taiwan policy remains consistent. And so I would just refer you to the White House because they obviously are the closest to that issue.
There's also speculation that President Lai would be doing his foreign trip, visiting diplomatic allies, and that also includes transit through the U.S. Do you think that May is a good timing?
We aren't tracking any requests for any high-level travel from Taiwan. As you know, it's been long the U.S. practice for Taiwanese leaders who are traveling to Latin America to transit the United States and the U.S. To arrange for their transits to ensure the dignity, comfort, safety, and convenience of the traveler. But right now, we don't have any specific requests.
KMT chairperson Liwen, she has expressed hope that she wants to visit Washington, D.C. In her words, hopefully the first half of this year. What message that the U.S. hope to convey to Taiwanese opposition parties?
Yeah, we've seen the reports. We don't have any specific plans that we've received from Chairwoman Zheng to visit the United States, but we are very happy to welcome visits by senior Taiwan political leaders. Just the other day, we had a very successful visit by the Taichung mayor, Liu Shouyan. And we here in Taiwan regularly reach out to party leaders on all sides. Our message is very consistent. Obviously, we talk about the deep respect we have for Taiwan's democracy, as well as the role that all the political parties play in deepening U.S.-Taiwan relations, whether it's in the security sphere, economic, or people-to-people ties. Obviously, right now, there's a lot of focus in the United States on the special defense budget and Taiwan's security. In the U.S. Congress, we have partisan politics as well. But one of the few areas I think there's a cross-partisan consensus in the United States is on security issues, particularly security in the Taiwan Strait. And I think we see the same commitment here in Taiwan, and so we hope to see the same spirit as Taiwan looks at some of these significant security challenges, as well as issues like defense budgets.
When we talk about defense budget, let's talk about numbers. So the legislative yuan is currently reviewing the special defense budget. But if, this is of course a hypothetical question, but if the final approved amount is lower than 1.25 trillion NTD, how do you think that would affect Taiwan's self-defense capabilities?
As you know, President Trump and the Trump administration has asked all of our allies and partners to increase their defense spending to 5% of GDP. And we very much welcome President Lai's announcement that Taiwan will hit that target by 2030. And on the road to that target, we see the special defense budget as a very important first step. Obviously, in addition to the amount of money that's spent, it's on how Taiwan spends the money is very, very important. And so we look at this special defense budget that the Ministry of National Defense has proposed. It includes, I think, all of the capabilities we believe the Taiwan military needs to fulfill its role in deterring conflict across the Taiwan Strait, whether it's integrated air and missile defenses, whether it's distributed command and control or communications facilities, whether it's anti-missile, anti-ship, or anti-armor capabilities. All of those are reflected in the budget. But also what's reflected in the budget is investment in Taiwan's own defense industrial base, especially to produce drone and other uncrewed systems. And we believe this is equally important for several reasons. On the one hand, I know many in Taiwan welcome it because of the economic advantages it provides to Taiwan's industry. But from our perspective, we think it gives Taiwan additional deterrent capabilities, and capabilities you can acquire actually quite quickly because Taiwan has such a deep industrial and manufacturing base. It also enables Taiwan to produce drones or munitions or other equipment on the island. So in the case, for example, of a blockade or some conflict where they couldn't be resupplied, it gives Taiwan additional resilience. And so we're very supportive of the contents of the special budget. We understand it's in the process of legislative review. But our position is we hope that all the parties will quickly come to a consensus because given the urgency of the threats Taiwan faces.
If the number did fall short, would it also have implications on U.S. deterrence strategy and deterrence policy in the Indo-Pacific?
I wouldn't think so much in terms of specific numbers, but rather specific capabilities. As you saw from our national security strategy, we talk about the fact that we are seeking to deter conflict up and down the first island chain. And so we're working with all of our partners in the region, whether it's Japan, whether it's Korea, whether it's Taiwan, Philippines, Australia, others, to ensure that they're investing in the right capabilities to help us achieve that deterrent effect. And so we believe the capabilities that Taiwan is seeking to acquire through the special defense budget and the regular annual budgets will achieve that effect because that's good for all of us. And I think nobody, any of our partners, wants to be the one party that causes other parties to have to adjust their posture. So I think it's very important to send, it'll not only in deterrent effect, kind of physical deterrent effect, but also I think symbolically showing Taiwan's commitment to our joint efforts to preserve peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region.
I just want to press a bit further because in my recent VoxPop interview with Vice President Baek Kim-seil, she actually talked about how the special defense budget, it's a long time discussion between both U.S. and Taiwan partners to basically work through what is needed for Taiwan's defense capabilities. I'm wondering whether you could share more details on that.
And it has been a result of a long set of consultations between the U.S. and Taiwan. But I think especially because you're seeing the changing character of warfare, whether it's in Ukraine, whether it's in the Middle East, the traditional kind of focus on conventional forces is now not being replaced, but being very much influenced by new technologies, especially unmanned and AI-enabled capabilities. And so we see the special budget including a big focus on these areas that are not only asymmetric, but also are basically new technologies that will change the character of the battlefield. And that sort of disruptive change can be very, very effective as we're looking to deter conflict, because others who are planning, potentially planning aggressive actions, they have to take into account these new risks that they would face from these types of technologies. And given Taiwan's very advanced technological base, given its deep manufacturing capabilities, we think Taiwan's especially well positioned. In the last couple of weeks, I've been traveling around Taiwan, visiting a lot of Taiwan companies. Some of them have been doing this for a long time, like Thunder Tiger. Some of them are very new. For example, I was in Imei the other day that used to make snacks and now is making uncrewed systems. But all of these companies have really impressive technologies, really impressive ability to scale up if given the right incentive structure. And it's not just me or my colleagues in AIT, but American companies like Anduril, Shield AI, a lot of these new technology companies in the US are coming to Taiwan because they see Taiwan as a natural partner to build secure supply chains, but also to scale up their own production. We have a lot of great technologies, but we really, I think, can find a partner in Taiwan as we look to build these into a more sustainable production line. And that, I think, will not only help serve Taiwan's defense needs, but I think there's huge potential for us to export it to third countries. And that's one of the reasons in January we arranged and supported the signing of a memorandum of understanding between AUVSI, which is the leading U.S. drone association, and the Industrial Technology Research Institute, or ITRI, to do certification of drone production under what we call green UAS, which will allow Taiwan companies to be able to be registered and certified as being safe, secure, in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of their supply chain, so they can sell directly into the U.S. market and eventually into the U.S. Department of War procurement system. And so I think this is an enormous opportunity. Taiwan's the first location outside of the United States that is able to do this sort of certification, and I think that really reflects how much we value Taiwan's potential as a partner in this field.
Because the opposition parties in Taiwan actually said that in regards to U.S. arms sales, most of them doesn't have any issue with it. But the primary part is actually with what you mentioned earlier, the investment in Taiwanese defense industry. So what you're trying to say is that in this Taiwanese defense industry portion, U.S. and Taiwan is actually a lot to work in that part.
Yeah, I mean, this is a new area for everybody. I think in the United States, we traditionally relied on just a small number of what we call defense prime companies. But more and more, given the pace of technological change, we're looking to a lot of startups, many from Silicon Valley, a lot of companies that are quite small and quite new to the defense sector. And so it's a learning process for all of us. I think for Taiwan as well, you have companies that had for maybe decades been doing work in the commercial sector, all of a sudden finding the opportunities there. And it requires a different procurement system, it requires a different mentality, it requires a lot more speed. And so I understand why there'd be, and just as in the United States, as we look at how do you match the government procurement system, how do you match the legislative oversight process to this new style of procurement, it can be a challenging problem set, but it's not an unachievable problem set. And so I think as the legislature reviews the budget and debates these sort of factors, I think they should be able to come to a conclusion that supports Taiwan's defense needs, supports Taiwan's industry requirements, as well as the oversight that the legislature, every legislature in the world fulfills.
I want to move on to economic security.
Yeah.
So in your latest speech that you gave at Xinjiang Fund, you actually talk about how we have actually welcomed the new golden age between US and Taiwan economic relations. I just wanted to ask and probe a bit further about after the US Supreme Court ruling, many in Taiwan began asking whether it could affect the trade deal between US and Taiwan. So what is your assessment on that?
Yeah, I think our government's been quite clear. U.S. Trade Representative Greer, after the Supreme Court ruling came out, it was very clear that we intend to abide by the agreements we've reached with our key trading partners. And obviously, Taiwan is our number 4th trading partner in the world, is one of the most important partners we have. We are very pleased with the outcome of the ART, the Agreement on Reciprocal Trade. I think Taiwan was as well. I saw all of the 6 major trade associations in Taiwan quickly came out and endorsed the ART. And so our intent is to abide by the ART. I saw Vice Premier Zhang has also reaffirmed that Taiwan has a desire to stick to the negotiated agreement. So right now what we need to do on the US side is to make revisions to the ART to reflect new legal authorities, because this, as you mentioned, the Supreme Court struck down IEPA, the International Economic Emergency Policy Act, as the basis for our tariffs. So right now we're in a temporary period under Section 122 of our Trade Act that allows the U.S. administration to maintain 10% tariffs on all of our trading partners. But that will expire in July, and so our goal is to replace those authorities with more permanent authorities that allow us to, again, get back to the terms of the deal. And so I expect in the coming months we'll be able to achieve that effect.
Because the time frame is not to be very long, it's been in July, so now it's the end of March. So
right, so it's, yeah, so I don't think it's going to, I think almost by definition we'll need to move in the next couple of months towards resolution.
Just curious on regional security, because we know that given the recent US-Iran conflict that is still ongoing, we've actually seen like countries, South Korea and Japan, has been pushing and providing necessary assistance to US in the Middle East region. So what does it mean for US Indo-Pacific strategy? What message does it send?
I would think there's maybe 3 messages for the Indo-Pacific region coming out of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. I think one message is that the US maintains the ability to project overwhelming military power anywhere in the world at very short notice. Just in the last 3 months you saw that in South America, now you see it in Iran. And if it requires it, we could project that same level of force and overwhelming capabilities in the Indo-Pacific or in Europe. But I think the second message is, in order for the US to be effective in providing that level of military support, we need our allies and partners to provide a baseline of deterrence, especially investing in their own capabilities in areas like integrated air and missile defense and drone and counter-drone warfare, because I think that baseline will then allow the U.S. Our ability to project globally to be effective. And we are really the only country in the world that can project power like that anywhere in the planet. I would say Taiwan is working, and our allies in the region are working very well in that direction, given their increased investments, not only in acquiring those capabilities, but also building the defense industrial base to support that. And so all of these, I think, go hand in hand. I would say the third message is the importance of energy security, because I think the Europeans, after the Ukraine invasion, realized their dependency on unreliable energy sources. And I think right now, in the Asia region, many countries are realizing they also need to diversify their energy supplies because of the risk of disruption. And so the good news is the United States is the world's largest energy producer. We're very eager to deepen our cooperation with Taiwan, with Japan, Korea, others, to provide alternative supplies. And so I think Taiwan's CPC's announcement of a new contract with Cheniere to import Gulf of American LNG is a positive step and a very well thought out step by Taiwan to diversify its sources. I think Taiwan's work with us to develop the Alaska North Slope LNG field over the longer term is going to be strategically a huge advantage for Taiwan, but also in other areas building up geothermal, nuclear, other forms of energy supplies that can be sourced internally also is, I think, a very important step to ensure that in the future Taiwan's not going to face similar disruptions.
So I'm very glad that we make a full circle.
Back to energy policy, yeah.
Policy, a whole security thing. But I want to just end this interview on a lighter note, is that you have been posted to Taiwan for 20 months. So, and before that, you are also the deputy director in Taiwan. So I'm just wondering, is there anywhere in Taiwan you haven't been to and have plans to visit?
Oh, yeah, I've been fortunate to be able to travel to most of Taiwan, especially I was here during COVID, and so there actually weren't a lot of other choices, but I took advantage of that to really see the island. The only place I haven't been to is Matsu, but I plan to do that. I think we're looking at June of this year, so that will complete the set of all of the cities and counties in Taiwan. So, but I look forward to resetting and start working through all of them again after that. But yeah, one of the best parts of this job is the ability to get out and travel all around Taiwan, meeting different people, enjoying different cultures. So I think I've been to Taichung once a month so far this year, going back again in a few weeks as well. And Kaohsiung, obviously, we have our office there, and we arrange travel around that district. Last year I went to Taidong for the balloon festival, but unfortunately the winds were too high, so fingers crossed this year I'll be able to get up in the balloon. It's been on my bucket list for many, many years.
Thank you, Director.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that concludes our interview, and this is AIT Director Raymond Green.